Love. Love is the light. Love is the spirit, truth, reality, nature, law, consciousness, being. Love is infinite, and it is mighty. It is source, and it is God, and it is pure life. Now, that is not something that you can just comprehend. Your understanding of what I just told you is infinitesimally small. It's an infinitesimal fraction of a sense of what that really is, because that is infinite. We, in this body, on this physical level, as this singular identity, we are tiny compared to that. In our world, this world of polarisation, whereby we are confined to the lines of up and down, black and white, man and woman, positive and negative. This is a level of limitation. It is the most limited form of being, of consciousness, and it is something confined to these lines, confined to this brain. Now, many identify as the light, as love. And there's some truth in that. You are of love, but you're not love. That belongs to God. That is something far beyond polarization. It can't be contained within limits. It is boundless. But many spiritual beings do this. And they're not really so aware of what they're doing when they do that. And it's important to understand this difference, that we are of light, but we're not the light. Our being here in body, this polarized being, this most singular, limited form of this light and of this being, is infinitesimally small compared to how infinite this light is. So what I'm saying with that is the two, they don't go together. You can't put polarity and non-polarity together. But this is what a lot of beings do unknowingly, by just identifying as the light or as the love. And you might not be conscious of that, because even beings that wouldn't regard themselves as spiritual beings, but beings where they really wear their heart on their sleeve, and they just identify as this love unconsciously. And that makes a lot of sense, and that's very natural to do, because you can just feel it. But it's important to humble yourself. It's important to be in your body. Because what you do when you identify as the love or as the light, or identify too far in that depth of love, is you set yourself up for the greatest self-conflict you can ever have. Because there's no way you can bring all of that into embodiment. You can't. You can take on more and more light and more love, and in a way this is what you're supposed to be doing. But you can't go so far that you tried to bring all of that into your body. It's a conflict, an inevitable conflict. And when we do that, we're very vulnerable. And this integrity of this most singular identity, this part, this earthly part, this becomes a subject. Because of course, when you bring that light in by just identifying as this love and really transmuting it into your body and embodying it more and more and more, of course it's gonna defy and dissolve this most human form, this most polarized form. The light dissolves polarities. And what people don't realize is when they do that, they're taking on a higher narrative. And already for a lot of spiritual beings, you move beyond this earthly narrative and you start moving into a cosmic narrative. But if you go too far, you're taking on a narrative that doesn't belong to you. It belongs to God. It belongs to love itself, the light. And that is not expected of us humans, of the human part. We're not supposed to take on the responsibilities of God. But if we do that, and do that too much, and we abandon and dissolve too much of this physical side, then we're gonna be taking on board and become a part of cosmic dynamics. And if you think this world is difficult and complicated, you've no idea just how complex cosmic narratives are, cosmic dynamics. You're getting yourself into very dark waters when you do that. And you are inevitably gonna fail. You're gonna collapse. You're gonna crash. And you're gonna come back down to earth hard. Inevitability. Because again, you can't ground something that is non-polarized and boundless. And a part of doing that and taking on board more of this light, more of this love, and putting your identity in that and letting that become your life. That energy, that being, that light, that love, it is awareness. And what happens is again, as you take this light, you become more and more open, and you start again taking on board this cosmic awareness, and you start to become aware of things that you shouldn't. It's not even natural for us to be absorbing so much information that we do. It's via social media, for example. We're taking on board all these global and collective problems. But because we identify in this light, it's very natural to want to solve that, because the light, that's just what it does. It's a harmonizer, it's a balancer, and it's inevitability that that light will prevail. It's unstoppable. It is inevitability. It is reality. But that's not our role. And so what tends to happen with a lot of spiritual beings or beings that are really in the heart is it's their nature to see and to become aware of the darkness in the world. And we tend to take on way too much. But again, and pay attention to this very carefully, is it's the nature of love to harmonize and to balance everything out from and take it from polarity into non-polarity. Remember, polarity is contrast, it's conflict, it's suffering. And it's the nature within that. And we want to be careful how much we identify in that, because we, as this individual, start to take on board that as if it's our own task. So a lot of spiritual beings, they might not say it, but it's within them, because they can feel it within the love, that they kind of want to save the world. We're too open. And there's one thing that inevitably you're going to face when you become aware of the darkness in the world, is when you become aware of this suffering, but you identify as the light, as the love, because you really feel it. You know, it's a very unconscious thing that we can be doing there, not realizing it. But when we become identified in that, but aware of the darkness and the suffering in the world, the nature, the animals, when we become aware of that suffering, but identified in love, but it's to the nature and the duty, in a sense, and the responsibility of love to resolve that. What inevitably happens from this body perspective is you realize you can't do that. But for love itself, it's inevitability that it will do that. It will do that. Its nature is to do that. Inevitability. But now we've got a bit of a conflict, because if we identify that, but we also get this sense where we can't do that, because we're thinking rationally, how can we do that? And then we have this breakdown. We have this heartbreak and suffering in realizing that we're helpless. But remember, we've identified as the love. So then it's like love is helpless. Love is hopeless. And that this good cannot prevail. And it's very much against the nature of love. So we have the greatest conflict there. And we hand over in the process our power. It's the most twisted thing, the most difficult thing, because it's not the truth, but because the way we identified in love, we kind of fucked that up. We set ourselves up there. And that's what feels so brutal, so painful, that we can't do something that we're supposed to do. But do you understand? We're not really supposed to do it. You are human. You've been given this body for a reason. To be where you are. To be there and not everywhere. You're not God. You can't take on board those responsibilities. You won't be able to handle bringing that in and getting pulled into those cosmic dynamics. You'll drown. You have to be where you are. You're meant to be where you are. The Spirit doesn't want you to have these worldly burdens on your shoulders. Now, I'm not telling you to ignore them, because it's a progression. We have to learn to grow, to take on more light, more fire, more power, more love, more awareness, more consciousness, more truth. But we can't do everything. And if you find that you're really suffering because you're unable to reach suffering and do something about these problems in the world, you know you're going too far there. And that should tell you that you're going too far. And that should tell you that you're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be present. So on this path, we're meant to grow. And we're meant to spread joy and peace and become a function for unification in this world. But you have to be careful how much light you take on there, how much spiritual responsibilities you take on, because it can end your life. You can die because of this. When you abandon your body and this human narrative too much. This subject for a being of love is it's like the main subject that you come to. Because it's like, okay, you realize, how can I have peace when there's no peace? Because in that love that you identified in, it's a collective thing, it's an interconnected thing, a oneness thing. You know, we're not the shadow. We can't just blissfully be ignorant. We are aware beings, we feel everything. So we come to this dilemma on this journey of how can we find peace when there is no peace? And it will tear you to pieces. So it's inevitability that you have to learn to set these boundaries and to pull yourself back inside and not expose yourself to too much going on there. And you'll know when you're too much there, because you won't be happy. You'll be suffering. But I know it's hard to do that, because you have to use some inner muscle here to be able to let that go and learn to take on appropriate responsibilities that are more feasible for the energy that you have within you. But there's perspectives that you will learn as you grow. For example, you learn to realize that, for example, when we see the suffering to animals in the world, it's a tough one. It can tear you to pieces. But think about it this way. In acknowledging that your scope of reality is like looking through a pinhead, trying to look at the whole cosmos, the whole picture, the reality, but through a pinhead, this brain, this most limited form of consciousness. You don't see the entire picture, the entire story. And so what I'm saying with that is, these beings, these animals that you perceive to be suffering, that part of them is also such an infinitesimally small part of what they are. But we get so identified in the light, and the light is the life, and we see this life suffering, but because we've identified as that life, that light, that love, it's like we are suffering. But in mature spirituality and mature being, and through growth, you learn that they're more than that. And that's not the entire picture. And it's not a reason to throw your life away and for you to suffer. You know you're not in truth when you yourself are suffering. You are not aligned with reality if you are suffering. Trust me. So these beings, there's so much more going on there that you don't see. And another thing is, imagine this. Those beings have a spirit. Would their spirit want you to suffer for their suffering? What would their spirit want? Their spirit, the spirit, would want you not to throw away your life force, not to abandon hope. That part of them is not the entire them, so it's not the entire picture. Somehow we have to find a way in life to take a negative and turn it into a positive, no matter what negative it is. But when you encounter certain situations in this world, or certain suffering, certain problems that make you collapse and suffer, you know you're taking on too much. Just by that. That's a kind of negativity you're not ready to absorb. You're not ready to transmute it, because you'd be wondering, how the fuck can you turn that into a positive? This world is a very complex world on this narrative physical level. It's like there's so much narrative, so much stories, so much places, different times, different people, It's like there's so much going on, so much complexity, but at the root of it all, in reality, everything is just energy. No, there's no narrative for the stars. All that matters to the stars is just energy. And it's like you gain energy or you lose energy. And that's all that's really going on behind every narrative on earth. And that's the choice that we have. And in a way, it's our only obligation that we have in this cosmos, in this spiritual existence. And it's the only thing that can't be done for you is that choice. And inevitably, you have to do that in this cosmos. You sink or swim. You rise or you fall. You rise in energy, you rise in frequency, in unification, in consciousness, in truth, in being. Or you fall and you sink and you become more polarized. And instead of rising into love, you rise into fear. You rise into complexity. Instead of coming in or up into naturality, you are falling or going out there into more artificiality, more delusion, more suffering. And that's your choice. It is your free will and sovereignty. And no amount of praying is ever going to do that for you, because this is the cosmos. This is a cosmic jungle. And as much as this world seems difficult and complicated, there's higher narratives out there in the cosmos. In a way, this earth is very protective. It's like a cosmic kindergarten that slows time down. It slows reality down so that we're not overloaded with reality. Because in a sense, if we were just to take on all of energy, all of the cosmos, all of reality, all of truth, all at once, we wouldn't see it for what it is. And that is also the reason why we are in body. Because here we have something special. We have time. We have day by day, step by step, one thing to another thing. And it really slows the process of this cosmos down when you can absorb it, when there's a kind of bridge. So don't be too eager to bring the walls down and cross the veil, because I guarantee you, you're not ready for it. You're not ready for it. If you were, you wouldn't be in a body. So be human. And be careful how much you take on and how much you identify as the spirit, as the love. Humble yourself as a being of love. And be where you are. And do what you can and accept what you can't. But realize that the heart is the heart. But on this polarized deception, it looks like I've got my heart, it looks like you've got yours, and it looks like these animals have got theirs. And in a sense, that's true, but there's a bigger picture. Because the heart is the heart, and the light is the light, and the love is the love. And we don't own that. Think of it like this, that all of these individual hearts, in a sense, they're like a gate to the heart, the collective heart. And when we want to help these beings that are suffering, we're trying to help their heart. But again, the heart is the heart. And in reality, it doesn't really matter whose heart you help. Because even if you just devote yourself through here to this heart, it's like a gate to the collective heart. So by raising your own frequency, you're still supporting every other bit of life on earth.